Hi, everybody. It's Ian Manning here from the Nova Scotia Community College Applied Geomatics Research Group in Middleton, Nova Scotia. Today, I'm going to be giving you a quick demonstration on a project we've been working on. It's one that I'm really excited about, and I hope you enjoy. So the project we've been working on is called the Southwest Nova Biosphere Reserve Digital Science Atlas. The atlas can be used on phones, tablets, or desktop computers. The atlas will be used in the classroom, but will also be useful for tourists, private landowners, and folks interested in learning more about the region. So let's take a look. As we scroll down, we get a big map of Canada, a little bit of text that describes biosphere reserves in Canada. A little technical note for folks that might be interested. This is built on the Esri ArcGIS Online platform. So the map is not just a picture, it's something you can interact with. So you can click and drag, zoom, as well as click on each of the different biosphere reserves to learn more about them. Next, we get into the actual boundary of the Southwest Nova Biosphere Reserve. I'm thinking probably a lot of you folks are familiar with it already, but just in case you're not, the Biosphere Reserve is composed of these 5 southwestern counties of Nova Scotia. The core protected area of the Biosphere Reserve is made up of the Tobiatic Wilderness area here in green, Keji National Park and Historic Site in orange, as well as Keji Seaside Adjunct down here in Port Jolly. The Southwest Nova Biosphere Reserve supports 3 functions: conservation, sustainable development, as well as capacity building for research and education. And all 3 of these initiatives are really dependent on high quality and current data. So really what we're trying to do with this atlas is provide a spot for folks to get the most current, up-to-date data and really present it in a way that's easy to understand and interesting. That's what we got the Digital Science Atlas. And so right now it's broken into a couple different chapters, more yet to come. We sort of started with science, and later on we'll be getting into the social side of things. To give you a quick idea, right now we've got forests, climate, geology, agriculture, biota, and aquatic resources. And all these chapters are sort of in various stages of completion. It's sort of a working prototype right now, but I'm really happy with how it's going. So I thought we'd just give you a quick little taste of what it's all about. So let's start things off by clicking on the forest chapter here. How the chapters are all organized. So it sort of breaks each chapter into well-defined chunks. The first bit here is an introduction, which will give you sort of an overview of the topic. So we go into the forest ecosite classification. If you click on each of these forest types, you get a little description and the DNR website. We go into the ecological, economic, social, cultural benefits of forest, as well as a little bit about forest ownership in Southwest Nova Scotia. The second tab across the top here is maps. And what the maps are the maps that we feel are the most relevant to forests in Nova Scotia. So among other things, we've got the ecological land classification. Again, these maps are all totally interactive. You can pan and zoom, click, and as you zoom in, the maps change. A lot of these datasets are coming directly in from via source. This is data that's published on the DNR server that we're accessing through our website. We can also bring in things like Nova Scotia water features, which shows the lakes, rivers, and streams, or just good old-fashioned satellite imagery. All right, across the top, the next tab is research. And this is kind of a neat visualization we've decided to put together. We're really lucky in the SNBR in that we have a lot of universities and post-secondary educations nearby, as well as a whole bunch of wonderful NGOs and really actively researching governments, both provincial and federal. So there's a lot of work going on, but you might not necessarily, unless you work with this kind of stuff, know where it's happening. So we're doing a map to show where these different research projects are taking place. So we've got these little blue hexagons, and what those are aggregate counts of research studies. So as you zoom in, you can actually see these little polygons will turn to points, and you can click on each of the dots, which represents a research study, and you can get information about a scientific study, and then you can link out to it for the full paper. And then down here, we just have little bookmarks, so you can zoom to different counties: Annapolis, Digby, Queens, or even take a closer look at some of the protected areas like Keji, Seaside, or the Tobiatic Wilderness area. All right. This next section is called Inspire, and a huge part of the Biosphere Reserves is the people and the businesses that are within them. So we thought it'd be cool to really bring to attention some really interesting groups that work or do research in the Southwest Nova Biosphere Reserve. So on the topic of forests, some groups are doing really awesome stuff. We've got the Medway Community Forest Co-op. Again, this all links out to the website. We also have MTRI, which has done some really great work, as you folks know. All right. The next section is the Interact section. This is where we're really bringing the atlas to life. So we're going to incorporate different research that's been going on. This is a really neat tool that's been done by some folks out of Carnegie Mellon University. It's a global satellite image database, and you can see some really interesting stuff. And we've got it set up so you can check out some different areas within the SMBR that show some interesting stuff. So we can zoom to Rosignol Lake, hit play, and it's actually going to go through and toggle through Landsat changes from 1984 to 2016. So down here in the bottom of the screen, you'll see the year change, and then you'll see the land cover change, the new harvest being cut. You see old harvest regenerating, and then, of course, in this picture, you see the difference in the water levels from year to year. If we go to Keji, we hit play. We can see that there's not a whole lot of change in the park, which is what you'd expect. Here in Sixth Lake, I like to bring attention to this little skinny kind of finger here, which is a little bit of what I think is a strip cut. And you can see at first there's a road and a couple little roads put in, and then eventually the strips are harvested, and then in present day, it's all grown back. And that final section here is open data.
And it's basically just a list of all the different data sets and reports that are available related to the theme in question.
Okay, so now that we've looked at the forest chapter, let's take a look at the next one. So we're back at the main page of the app. We can actually click table of contents up here. That brings us right down to the bottom where we have our different chapter directory. So let's fire up the climate chapter. If you remember what the forest chapter looked like, this one's quite similar. We've got an introduction where it goes into the basic climate of the area. We go into the climate zones. You can click on one of the names. It shows up on the map. Atlantic Coastal, we can learn a little bit about it there. It goes into threats about climate change. Next, in the map section, we get some of the important mapping data sets that are relevant to climate and climate change in Southwest Nova Scotia. We've got the plant hardiness zones that were done in the 60s, and then again later in the 2000s, and we can see how those change based on changing climate. We can also bring in Environment Canada weather stations with live data, or also bring in some work from the Kejimkujik Katmon monitoring station. Let's just jump ahead to the Interact section. This is something that's pretty cool. One of the things we're really hoping to do with this application is draw attention to a lot of the work that's out there. So this is a neat tool built by Tim Webster and his team at the Applied Humanities Research Group, and it's basically a web application that can be used to model floods during storms. So we can jump down to Yarmouth, click the zoom button, it goes into there. Base maps, let's turn on imagery so we can see a little bit better. Layers, I'm going to turn off the elevation model so we can actually see what's going on the ground. Then this is actually, we'll query a tide gauge down in Yarmouth. This chart pops up. Orange is the normal water level. Red is the total water level with the storm surge. So it looks like later on this week there can be a little bit of a storm. So we can click on that to load that data. Now if we zoom into Yarmouth, we can see that we can expect, well, a pretty high tide there later on this week. But what that doesn't account for is waves. So say we get some big massive waves, we can up that by a meter. And we can see that some of the downtown docks begin to get flooded. Got all kinds of great stuff are out there that's sort of floating in different spots. So we're hoping that this atlas will be a great tool also just for bringing attention to some of the cool research that's already going on in here. And there's instructions on the side if you haven't been playing around with the app as much as I have. All right.
So thanks everyone for taking the time to check out that demo. We're really excited about the application, and we think it's a really great way to encourage learning in our Biosphere Reserve. So if anyone has any feedback on what you've seen of the app so far, I really, really appreciate hearing about it. You can contact me at ian.manning@nscc.ca. Also, if you have or know of any data sets, reports, or information that you would like to see included in the app, please email me. I'd absolutely love to hear from you. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye-bye.